A reading I'd like to share with you today is by Parker J. Palmer, and it's called Everything Falls Away. Sooner or later, everything falls away. You, the work you've done, your successes, large and small, your failures too, those moments when you were light alongside the times when you became one with the night. The friends, the people you loved, who loved you, those who might have wished you ill, none of this is forever. All of it is soon to go or going or long gone. Everything falls away, except the thread you followed, unknowing, all along, the thread that strings together all you've been and done, the thread you didn't know you were tracking until toward the end. You see that the thread is what stays, as everything else falls away. Follow that thread as far as you can, and you'll find that it does not end, but weaves into the unimaginable vastness of life. Your life never was the solo turn it seemed to be. It was always part of the great weave of nature and humanity, an immensity we come to know only as we follow our own small threads to the place where they merge with the boundless whole. Each of our threads runs its course, then joins in life together, this magnificent tapestry, this masterpiece in which we live forever. As an oncology chaplain, sometimes when I'm getting acquainted with a patient for the first time, I will often ask, tell me, what's a perfect day look like for you? Before you got sick, you don't have to work, you're feeling pretty good, what would that day be for you? I see this as a kind of a shorthand way to find out what floats their boat, where they get their juice, where they find their meaning in life. And it can often be a revealing answer. Although sometimes I admit I do sit in judgment. When someone fumbles for an answer, oh, I don't know, watching TV, I guess. Carl, in his early 40s, newly diagnosed with lung cancer, took no time at all to respond. Or watching my son play soccer and then taking him out for an ice cream. That answer reveals so much, doesn't it? A few years ago, I had a patient, Kelly, who gave me a little holiday gift. It was a teeny spool of thread, wrapped up in a poem written by William Stafford. The poem's called The Way It Is. There's a thread you follow. It goes among things that change, but it doesn't change. People wonder about what you are pursuing. You have to explain about the thread, but it's hard for others to see. While you hold it, you can't get lost. Tragedies happen. People suffer or die. They hurt and grow old. Nothing you do can stop time's unfolding. You don't ever let go of the thread. What a beautiful, succinct summation, isn't it? And what a sweet, tender gift. Carl had no trouble at all identifying his thread. Would you? What do you suppose yours would be? The older I get, the more my story unfolds. I find myself wondering if it's really as simple as all that. Is it as clean as all that? Is the thread really unbreakable? Is it really unchanging? I thought I had a good grip on it. But then divorce happened, or cancer, or bankruptcy, or Parkinson's disease, or the career that seemed to define me, it vanished. Do I have to find a new thread now? Or redefine the old one? Or is it enough to simply rest in my faith in the idea that the damn thread exists in the first place? If the thread does exist, and I like to believe that it does, it can be an arduous process of distillation, I find, to drill down and identify it. A process that can take years, if not decades. That particular spiritual distillation, if you will, is a challenge that confronts so many on the cancer journey. If I can no longer be, do, or have what I once was, who would I even be then? Do I even exist? If I'm no longer the super mom who never misses a soccer game or a birthday party, am I even still a mom? And yet, while we do perhaps have a good grip on the thread, it can serve as a kind of guy wire, stabilizing us in stormy times. But I'm also wondering if it might be conceptualized not just as a thread to run through our life or beneath our life, but what about a thread to wrap around our life, to hold it together, to give it some coherence, to help us find a place for all the disparate pieces of our puzzle, a puzzle that might have to be arranged and rearranged again and again because time and life simply demand it. Still, any way you cut it, it can be a difficult journey to drill down and identify that thread. My sister Terry was a pioneer in women's surfing in the 1960s and 70s, competing at the national level. She was even the producer and co-director of the first professional women's surfing championship in 1975, the Hang Ten Invitational in Malibu. Terry's going to be 77 this year. She still loves to surf. Though it grieves her that she can't do everything she once could, certainly not as easily. She told me that not long ago she bumped into an old surfing chum from back in the day at the beach, and they were bemoaning this particular state of affairs. And he said, "Terry, you know what I came to realize? It was always just about getting wet." I loved that. I thought it was about thrills or big waves or competition or winning. Maybe it was just about getting wet. That's distillation. As an old former professional dancer, I confront the very same challenge every week in dance class, coming face to face with the limitations of a body that will not do what it once did. It's not easy. But a number of years ago, I came to a different relationship with those limitations that has everything to do with this concept of essence. I have never seen a dance performance that knocked me in the gut with more power, more intensity than seeing Donna McKechnie in the original Broadway production of A Chorus Line at the Shubert Theater in New York City on Broadway, 1976. That was some kind of heady experience for this 21-year-old aspiring professional dancer from Los Angeles on his first trip to New York City. Kind of transcendent, actually. Well, a number of years ago, Donna performed here in Los Angeles at an AIDS benefit. She was maybe in her 60s at the time. She put on quite a bit of weight. She wore a big flowing caftan-like gown. She offered a highly truncated version of her tour de force from A Chorus Line, The Music in the Mirror. Oh, there were echoes of the original choreography, remnants here and there, the flick of a head, hitting an arm gesture, a line. I sat in my seat and just sobbed. Not out of sadness for what was lost or missing, but crying at the unmistakable beauty of essence, of her essence. An essence that might have even been camouflaged once upon a time by her youth and agility. In some ways, it was a more potent performance, more impactful than had she been soaring across that stage at the Shubert Theater in that red dress in front of that bank of mirrors. Distillation. I'd been told that Keith had been a brilliant architect, but by the time I met him, months after his glioblastoma diagnosis, that brain tumor had robbed him of all that brilliance. He found it nearly impossible to compose a coherent sentence. Yet he loved to see me every week, so we would meet. Wasn't always so easy to have a conversation, but there was one sentence he used quite easily and often. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. As if his whole being had been distilled down to a sense of apology for not being who he once was, for not being able to communicate clearly. I finally had to say, Keith, one rule in here. No more I'm sorry. No apology. We can use this hour anytime you like. We can sit and meditate. We can try to talk. We can just hold hands and look at each other. We can cry. We can pray. But no more I'm sorry. This has to be one place where you don't feel like you're letting yet one more person down. Certainly not me. I never got to know Keith in the context of his brilliance, and yet I kind of fell in love with the guy. With the sweetness of his smile, his gentle heart, and his tender spirit. Distillation. Yes, it can be a journey to drill down and find that thread, but to find a way to wrap around our story with that thread is a whole matter altogether. Particularly, I find when we've endured some kind of loss or catastrophe. Such losses often demand that we let go of so much. Most particularly our expectations of how we thought life should be, could be, wanted it to be, hoped it would be, needed it to be. Sometimes we even have to let go of hope altogether. At least a hope that things will get better. In some situations, they won't get better. Guaranteed to get worse. Is it still possible to find a way to wrap that thread around our lives and our stories, hold it together, at least enough to take the next few steps that life demands of us? A couple years ago, I got to take a wonderful 2-week solo journey to Turkey. And there I got a vivid reminder of something I've long known to be true. There's the thing, and there's our experience of the thing. And they're not the same thing. Ask anyone and they will tell you one of the most primo sights to see in all of Turkey is the Blue Mosque in Istanbul. And it is indeed magnificent. But on that particular Sunday morning, after waiting in an impossibly long line and going through security and navigating the hordes of visitors inside, my experience of the place did not begin to match the majesty and the magnitude of the architecture. By contrast, I had a far more meaningful, potent, even tearful experience visiting a far more modest, far smaller 13th century wooden mosque called Eşrefoglu in a teeny village called Beyşehir. The experience of the thing is distinct from the thing itself. For over 20 years, I served as a co-founder, co-director of GLIDE, Gays and Lesbians Initiating Dialogue for Equality. We were an all-volunteer anti-homophobia speakers bureau. And in those 20 plus years, I trained hundreds of speakers, volunteer speakers. Each one had to craft their own little coming out story. I would always counsel them to share their experience, not their story. The story is just the facts. I came out to my mom when I was 16. The experience, on the other hand, might sound like for me, coming out to my mom was the big one because I stood the most to lose there. If my mom rejected me, I'm in trouble. I was so scared. Following that through line of our experience of our life story might just, in fact, lead us to our thread, no matter how we might interpret it. And that's the thing. It's always up for interpretation and reinterpretation. Esther was this vibrant, luminous spirit, an art historian, a scholar, a professor, a curator. I met her for the first time on her first day of chemotherapy, being treated for ovarian cancer. And after visiting with her, I tell you, I was ready to quit my job then and there, go back to school so I could study German Expressionism under Esther. Her passion was that infectious. Well, after decades of scholarship and teaching and research, she was offered the chance of a lifetime, a dream come true. She was invited to curate a major retrospective exhibition of the German Expressionist master painter Max Beckmann at a world-class museum. This was a dream come true for her. But the thing is, these things need to be planned a few years in advance. Could she make that commitment, given her diagnosis, given her treatment regimen? She wrestled with all the questions, as you might imagine. But Michael, maybe I need to say yes. Maybe I need to make that commitment. What do you think? Because if I do, maybe then that's the affirmation my body needs to fight this cancer. Sadly, her disease progressed at such a rate that she needed to decline the offer. As we wandered through the rubble of her loss and grief and disappointment, we looked at what was the essence of what had been lost. And had it really been lost? Was the essence really about the recognition, about the world-class museum? Was it even about the art? Or was the essence really her capacity to inspire others, to give breath to that kind of passion? That capacity to inspire that had inspired countless students, myself included. One graduate student changed her whole dissertation, her fieldwork, her course of study after one class with Esther. What if that capacity to inspire and that passion were her version of getting wet? What if that's the thread that could wrap around her whole story and hold it together? As tragic as the ending was. A couple years ago, I came upon an essay in The Atlantic in which the essayist drew a distinction between obituary virtues and eulogy virtues. Obituaries, when you think about it, often read like a resume. Just the facts, the box is checked. He was born here, went to school here, married this person, had these kids, worked here, loved to play golf, and then he died. Eulogies, on the other hand, often revealed a far more nuanced version, multidimensional version of who a person was. He was the guy who always made you laugh. He was the one who showed up to help you move without being asked or to help you paint your living room. Through one lens, an obituary might be the story of our life, just the facts. The eulogy might be our response to the story. How did we take that story and translate it into a way of being in the world, into a way of engaging with the world? What do you suppose it would mean if we recalibrated our lives today to focus on eulogy virtues rather than obituary virtues? Perhaps following that through line of eulogy virtues might not just lead us to our thread, but to a way to wrap that thread around our life, hold it together, give it that coherence for which we long. You know how some people, myself included, God knows, will post pictures on social media, Facebook, what have you, of a beloved dog or cat asking for prayers and good wishes as their beloved pet faces some life-threatening health crisis. Your heart breaks for them. And then in a few days, there's another picture as our friend shares their inconsolable grief over having had to say goodbye to their fur baby. You just kind of die for them. You remember when it was your turn at that rodeo? Or you live in dread of what's coming down the pike for you and your fur baby. And then in a month or 2 or 3, there's another picture, or 12, of the most adorable kitten or puppy. Meet Oscar, everybody. Have you ever seen anything so adorable in your life? I'm so in love, I can't stand it. I sometimes wonder if the specificity of that puppy or kitten matters at all. What matters is that there's this bigger love, this longing, this need in our heart that needs to be given away. And this is the little guy who showed up, so we're just going to love each other forever. That's that. I certainly don't mean to denigrate the uniqueness of any of our fur babies, God knows. But this love, I think, is bigger than our love for our beloved old dog or cat. It's bigger than our love for this sweet little kitten or puppy. It's bigger than all of us. That bigger love might be the very thing that's at the end of all of our threads. The sweet, uncomplicated, uncompromising love I felt from my grandmother, Anne, certainly points me in the direction of my thread, if it isn't the thread itself. She's been dead for over 35 years. And yet I find it's her voice I hear in my head, I carry it in my heart. She lived a hard life, grew up in a very poor, large Italian Catholic family, 10 brothers and sisters, beaten regularly by her father. After one such beating in which he broke a shovel across her back, she'd had enough. And that night she ran away into the arms of the young man who would become my grandfather for no other reason than he was there. She was 15 years old. If that shovel hadn't broke, I wouldn't be here. Sadly, that marriage didn't last too long, but it brought 3 kids into the world. To my grandmother's credit, she never stopped looking for love, and she gave it away in abundance to her kids, her grandkids, her great-grandkids, her neighbors, her friends. My mom and I used to reminisce about her with a chuckle about how she would respond when you'd tell her about some loss or tragedy in your life. she'd listen so carefully, and then the most she would say would be, well, keep your chin up, dearie. Wasn't nearly as flip or as callous as it sounds. It was said with so much tenderness. And it actually reflected a kind of hard-won wisdom that she would have been hard-pressed to articulate, but a wisdom that would say that I know there's nothing I can do or say to make this any better. I'm not going to insult you by pretending there is and saying it. I just want you to know I love you so much. I want you to be happy. I don't want you to hurt. So the best I got is keep your chin up, dearie. Sometimes a patient will ask me for a prayer or a blessing, and I will often include this. May we keep our hearts and eyes open to recognize blessings that we don't know we're looking for. May that be so. I don't know, though. In the meantime, keep your chin up, dearie. So be it.